We first met TVS's spanking new Apache RR 310 on a racetrack, and there it impressed us hugely. But now we're getting to spend some quality time with the RR, and we are throwing it the biggest test that it needs to deliver in, and that is the real world. The RR 310, it looks cool, doesn't it? And actually what we have to find out is, does it run cool or not? TVS made a huge hoo-ha about the special vents and the fairing, which helps to keep the heat off the rider's legs while commuting. So there's only one way to find out whether it works or not. Commuting. When you're traveling at slow speeds on any performance bike, the heat is impossible to escape. As the engine heats up, the radiator fan kicks in and sends hot air straight towards the rider's legs. But the RR has chimneys, which suck hot air from the radiator and shoot them down. While the rearward inclined cylinder does emanate some heat, the overall impressions were clear. Bottom line, the RR 310 works as advertised, which means even in stop-go traffic, you don't get the heat wash onto your legs. You don't have to take our word for it, we are going to show you. This is an infrared thermometer, and before I tell you what we're going to do with it, here's how we've set up the RR. It's been standing at idle for about 20 minutes now, which means the temperature is nice and high, 107 degrees on the readout here. And this is how we're going to use this. This is my palm. We're going to take the temperature. There we go. We get a nice laser spot on it to see where it's aimed at. Once we have that readout, this is going to be our control. So it's hovering at about 34.4 to 30. Yeah, that's about it. 34.5 degrees. We're going to place it where usually the air comes out from and hold it there for about 10 seconds and take a measurement. There we go. Straight away, there's a jump right from the start point in terms of overall temperature, and that's 36.5, so that's about 2 degrees more than what we saw earlier. And now we're going to move to the duct here, where once the fan comes on, it sucks the air from near the radiator and exits it out from here, from this chimney. So when I place my palm here and get a readout, let's see, this again starts off at a much higher level, and this is just in about 10 seconds that it's going to this level. And honestly, 44 degrees might not sound like much, but my hand's feeling like it's burning up over there. And prolonged exposure to this kind of air force, yeah, we know what that feels like, right? Scald your thighs, in this case my palm. 46 degrees, about there, yes. Whoa. When a motorcycle does really well on the track, there is some cause for concern, because that could mean that it isn't all that street friendly. And the RR 310? The basics. In case you have forgotten, the RR has a 312cc single-cylinder liquid-cooled engine, and it makes 34 PS of power. But what matters here is the torque. You'd be surprised with the RR in traffic, as you can carry a gear even 2 higher than what you might imagine. Even in 5th, it'll cruise along in the city. So while the peak torque of 27.3 Newton meters is made at 7700 RPM, the action starts right from 2000 RPM. In our measured roll-on tests, the RR was surprisingly fast, almost enough to keep pace with the more powerful KTMs. This also helps with the fuel efficiency, with the RR returning 31.1 kilometers per liter in the city. Also keep in mind that the clutch lever is light enough and the gear shifts are precise, although a bit clunky. We said it before, we'll say it again, this motorcycle has a whole lot of torque coming in at low RPMs, which is why it's great for commuting. You can just dawdle around in 3rd gear at 20 kilometers an hour, even with a Pillion on board, open the gas and it'll get going. And that's not all. While it is very torquey and responsive, at the same time it won't feel slow. Open the gas, it is properly peppy as well. So the heat management, apt for commuting. The performance from the engine, apt for commuting. But what about the suspension and the ergonomics?
The hardware is a top-spec trellis frame with 41mm upside-down forks at the front and a monoshock at the rear. While this is sporty in terms of spec, the RR is tuned for street use, and it just glides over bumpy roads, potholes and speed breakers. There really isn't much to fault it for. Yes, it takes a little getting used to in the way it just suddenly tips into corners, but after a quick adjustment, you'll find that making U-turns or wriggling through traffic is a breeze. Even the seating position is good for all sizes of riders, tall, short or wide.
Well, as we all expected, the seating position is a bit sporty, but not sporty enough to tire you out while commuting. In fact, if some of you feel that you get a bit of pain in your wrists after riding the RR in the city, I've got a small tip for you. As standard, the levers for the brakes and the clutch are set a bit flat. All you need to do is loosen these bolts, turn them down a bit, and then your arm and your fingers will be in one line, and that will help relax your posture significantly. One thing's clear, this suspension setup is meant to flatter bad roads. You can go over bumpy sections, over speed breakers quite smoothly. In fact, the rear can be stepped up in terms of stiffness for sportier riders, but the front overall is set on the softer side. Kind of the focus of this motorcycle maybe, but don't get me wrong, if you wanted to ride hard and fast around a set of corners, the RR, we've shown you that before, can do that pretty well. And what about the pillion seat? We need to stress test that.
This is PD, and with our weights combined, the RR was really being put through a stress test. And a couple of things became very clear to me. Even with the Pillion on board, this Apache didn't feel wobbly or nervous to steer at low speeds. And despite the additional load, the engine pulled without any stress. And as for the Pillion seat, yes, you do sit high up. And worst of all, the seat is very hard. So,
well, the pillion seat, our advice, don't stress test it. Yeah, it needs petite people for company, maybe with not so, well, generous proportions in length or width, and they'll be better off on shorter distances, because that seat really isn't all that wide, and well, the foot pegs are quite up, so if you accelerate, brake, it does load up a lot. And this bike, unlike the bike that is stock, doesn't have the grab handle on one side, which you do need for the Pillion. It's no surprise that in terms of seating position, the RR feels comfortable on the city, but what is impressive is that this small little screen provides significant wind protection even upwards of 100 kilometers an hour, and that is a big plus when you're clocking a lot of kilometers.
on the open road, the RR's wind tunnel design shape proves to be very effective. Even at triple-digit speeds, it keeps the wind off a 5'6" rider very effectively. Also, the fuel efficiency of 35.9 km per litre is healthy for this class of motorcycle. But this is where things start to go a bit off. Firstly, the engine. Actually, the vibes. Try cruising at triple-digit speeds and you're sure to be left with tingling palms and feet.
Between 6 and 7,500 RPM, the buzz becomes quite apparent through the seat, through the tank panels, and even through the pegs. The vibrations, if you're thrashing it out on the track, are something you could deal with because you're constantly moving around. But touring long distances, just sitting in the saddle and having nothing much to meditate on other than your motorcycle or the surroundings, that buzz can kill the buzz of the road trip a bit. But having said that, if you stay below about 90 kilometers an hour, you'll find the going nice and smooth.
What else? Well, there are a few other areas where the RR feels a bit annoying. Toggling through the on-screen menus is a bit taxing. And the throw from the headlamps, while good, didn't feel as impressive as we expected. And well, that's it. Everything else is top-notch. Look at the switchgear, the mirrors, the paint finish, the decals, and the beautiful fasteners for the fairing. The overall design is properly head-turning. And at 2 lakh rupees, the RR is walking the line between sensible and exciting really quite well.
We were expecting a lot from the RR310. Too much maybe? But let's sum it all up. As we saw today, be it the ergonomics, the suspension or the engine, this is a very commute-friendly motorcycle. And yes, it could be a little bit better on some fronts. For instance, for higher speed, long distance travel, the buzz from the engine, the panels and the seats can get quite annoying. And that aside, the sport riders would have wanted a more focused suspension setup, better bite from the brakes. But that aside, you look at what the Apache RR310 has to offer and you realize that this has come pretty close to striking that sweet balance between being sporty and practical. On the whole, we still hold what we said at first. This is a very impressive motorcycle.